Hi, everyone. My name is John Faulkner. I'm your host of the Smarter Systems, Better Care podcast, and I'm joined today with Dr. David Tai. He's an optometrist and founder of Vision Light Eye Care, where he's dedicated to helping patients see clearly and maintain lifelong eye health. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Tai.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And just to give our listeners context, what's the core focus of your business today, and how do you serve your clients?
So in Vision Light Eye Care, we focus mainly on two categories. One is myopia control, and the second one is dry eyes. And we do everything in between with primary care in terms of glasses, contacts, um, eye disease, and all that stuff.
Excellent. And then give us a bit more background about yourself as well, kind of like, where you came from, and just anything you want to tell us unique about your story to kind of get you where you are today.
I guess a brief history. I was born in Taiwan. I grew up in Hong Kong, studied in China, finished med school in China, and I came here for optometry school. Been working in Queens in multiple locations before I started my own practice with a partner in Flushing as a cold start. So we built everything from ground up because we wanted to do things our way. We
Yeah.
are mainly focused on education. We believe that's like the core factor to help patients understand what's really going on. And once they do understand, they would kind of follow through the procedures or instructions better because they would understand why they're doing it and then not really change the regimen like on the spot. Like, because
Yeah.
like yeah, a lot of times it's like, oh, I feel better. Let me just stop it. Or like, oh, let me do 3 instead of 4 times a day.
Right. Exactly. So they change their own plan of care when you're the one who told them you should follow this for a reason, right? So that sounds like it can be a barrier for sure in there when you're taking care of patients. And also when you look at your role, like where do you spend the most energy kind of driving the growth with Vision Light Eye Care?
I spend the most time figuring out programs that can help educate the patients outside of the clinic. And then once they come in, our doctors will explain more in detail. So I figure out these programs with, I guess, when we're talking about, for example, myopia control, we work with like daycares, hospitals, because sometimes doctors don't know really about it. And like, for example, like after schools or all the pediatric places. We schedule like these kind of like short seminars where we tell the parents what myopia is, what nearsighted is, what's causing it, and what's the consequences of it, how to prevent it, what can be done like furthermore uh, to kind of like prevent complications from a high myopic eye. And then if they're more interested, more than welcome to, come check it out and do a consultation with our doctor for like more detailed examinations and then like personal customized questions.
Absolutely. And then like specifically in your industry with, eye care, like what's one shift in your industry that most leaders are not paying enough attention to at this time?
I would say myopia control is still very like not focused enough. So a lot of diseases, for example, like retina detachments, glaucoma, macular degeneration, it's all very correlated with high myopes. So the higher prescription. So basically, a short way of kind of explaining. So myopia is the eyeball being too long, and once it becomes long, it stretches and thins out, and then the nerves would thin out and causing all the complications like macular degeneration. And then when the eyeball is too stretched out, it tends to have like holes or tears that goes to retina detachment. And all these like neural damages are not like reversible. So it's like down the line where they can't treat it, but they forgot to kind of prevent it in the beginning. It's also like, because like nowadays, it's more the things are changing the way we use our eyes. Like decades ago, there isn't like these phones, tablets. Like after they graduate, they're not really reading books anymore. So the vision isn't used as it was before. Like nowadays, everything's up close, and then after you graduate, you work up close, and then you on your phone, even with entertainment, whatever. So nowadays, we're using our eyes more to look up close, and it's becoming a problem for the myopic growth. So the higher the prescription, the longer the eyeball, the more the complications, and once it gets there, it's not reversible. So people really need to focus on how to prevent it early on because a lot of like parents who think, well, glasses is enough. As long as they could see, it's fine. But like glasses is just the most basic to help them see, but it doesn't help prevent the prescription from getting higher. I feel like that's like a very big part. Some companies, some places are catching up a little bit, trying to help with the public education, but it's still very lacking. We also, on the side, we started a myopia charity just to
Interesting. Okay.
focus on spreading the word for myopia, like management, the stuff. So to elaborate a little bit, the myopia charity is to have three goals. One is to do more public education, to at least tell people what it is, and two is to connect them with the right providers. Not enough doctors, far from enough doctors are really doing it and doing it correctly. And three is to try to fundraise and support families that cannot afford it because it is out of pocket. Insurance do not cover it, averaging about like 1,000 a year out of pocket. So it's a lot of times the obstacle for families to kind of like get that treatment for their kids. But if you don't get it, like I said before, like if you don't get it, you don't treat it now, it becomes a high prescription and then becomes a bigger obstacle in life. If they
Yeah,
can't see
absolutely.
well, they can't learn well, they can't provide, for the family, and then it's a bad cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like, do you focus on like a pediatric population and adult, or is there one population you're more focused on in your practice?
It varies. So, for
There's
example, myopia is more so children, but there's also young adults nowadays with high prescription getting higher because of their work, near work. So, a lot of like these 30s, their prescription's still getting higher. So, we still have like patients that come in for myopia control. And as for the dry eyes, that's all age around. Like people used to think like old people get dry eyes, but like nowadays, young adults using phones, tablets, even kids, like staring at screens and not blinking the eyes, it's causing early onset for dry eyes. So we treat like almost everyone. And then, to daily contacts and glasses, we treat pretty much all ages.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I'm kind of curious too, like with myopia, have you seen like over time, like in the past 5 to 10 years, like an increase with I wonder if there's some kind of correlation with like mobile use, like iPhone use, iPad use, and like all these devices and like the patients that you're seeing where maybe their conditions are expeditedly getting worse, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for
Just
sure.
curious on your insight.
Especially during COVID. A good example would be like there's a lot of people like pre-COVID, they're not really working remote or on screens. They're like on site, whatever. But then since remote, they need to use tablets, they need to work on their phones, they need to work on like, for example, computer screens, whatnot. And that drove their prescription higher over time. So it's like an obvious thing that we picked up as well.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot, not just like in the eye care space, but other niches within healthcare where things changed a lot because of COVID as a result. So that was a good call out that you mentioned in your experience. And like, how have you adapted to these major changes where, people are, obsessed with their devices basically, and it's kind of overtaking, it's kind of changing how they, you know, obviously look at things, their eyes are adjusting or they're not blinking, like you said. Like,
Yeah.
what happens if businesses that kind of ignore this shift? Like, what do you think is going to happen?
So like for example, like now we're on phones and in a few years, maybe earlier than we think, it's gonna be on our face.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I feel like not blinking is also a big problem people are not really focusing on. I mean, blinking as a full, like a full blink and a half blink is a very big difference. Because a lot of people with bigger eyes and when they don't want to miss a second, their eyelids don't go all the way down and it's like a half blink. And then the bottom part of the eyes, it just keeps drying out and it causes like a long-term issue down the line. And then the meibomian glands, that's like I guess these glands at the bottom or like the both both sides of the eyelids, but mostly at the bottom. That when we blink, it secretes the oil to protect the tear film. So when it's not blinking enough or blinking hard enough, the muscles are not really squeezing the glands and the oil out. So when it's not flowing, it becomes clogged. And once it's clogged, if you don't treat it or like manually like squeeze it out, it's clogged there for in a way forever. And if it's not used, it's gonna die off. and then it's going to cause your eyes to not have enough oil to protect that tear film. So a lot of like more severe patients, their tears just keeps evaporating, and it's painful for them to open their eyes because once there's no tear film, it kind of stings the eyes. So it's like once they open up, a few seconds, they can't keep it open. So it's a big
Yeah, that'd
problem.
be a painful experience to go through the rest of your life. That'd be miserable, I'd feel like. Yeah, for sure. And then kind of looking more like at the vision like eye care, operations like systems and efficiencies, because that's a lot of the focus of the podcast. Like, what do you look at operations day to day? Where do things feel clunky or kind of slower than you'd like to see?
I mean, we are always looking to drive more, what do you call it, traffic in a way. So we've been trying to do more marketing for myopia control. And it's also because it's not well known yet. So that's why we are doing a lot of like these outreaches for public education. So that's been helping a little bit, but we still need to work on like telling the public what myopia is and how to treat it, how to prevent it, and how to intervene with these specialty contacts and eye drops and what it means to do it and not do it. That's something that we've been trying to work on recently.
Yeah, get more exposure, education in the public about myopia. Absolutely.
And
And like,
dry
how,
eyes too.
yeah, dry eyes as well. And
Yeah.
like, how do you follow things up? How do you handle things like follow-ups, no-shows, or manual outreach with patients? Like, how do you get them to, I know it's always a constant problem. It doesn't matter your specialty, whether you're in eye care, internal medicine. Like, how does it work on the eye care side? I'm just curious if that's different or what you're seeing.
I mean, we do have like sort of a system in the office that we kind of keep track of their annual or whenever they need to come back. So, for example, when they come in, we kind of like decide when's the next best time to come in. So we put a schedule first, and then if they no show or we need to reschedule, we usually call them ahead of time just to say your appointment's coming up. If you need to change, let us know. Can't get in contact. We just kind of like try a few times, email or not, and just kind of like keep them aligned on their schedule so they're like on the way to get better. So, because like sometimes the treatment plans, if you fall through, we have to start again. So that's like wasting time and energy and money to kind of like not do it step by step. So that's sort of how we follow up.
Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely sounds like it's something you're trying to work on and get better at too, trying to figure out the gaps and fill those in as well. And like kind of get into like the more of the bottlenecks, like results that you look for in your business. Like what's working really well that you'd never want to lose?
I feel like the education, we find that very helpful to, for one, keep the patients on the instructions. Like once they truly understand like why this is happening and then like what's going on and what they can do to help, then they would really do it. For example, like the treatment plans or like, want to come back. Why are they coming back? Once they understand why they're coming back, they would come back more often than not. If I don't tell them why they're back for, and say, "Oh, why am I going back? I don't need to go back." You know, so they,
Yeah,
they
they need
kind
a
of
really good
decide.
reason. Yeah.
Yeah, they need a good reason to come back, and then once they know, they really need to, because we're trying to like let them know like we're doing our best to try to get them to their best. So they need to like do their half of the work to help us help them. But what if they don't understand what we're trying to do? They're not really motivated to like do the halfway. So once they understand, then if they want to get better or like it's all for them, then they would it's better.
Yeah, absolutely. They need a clear understanding of, what you're trying to achieve, understand what the result you're trying to obtain for them. It's not just for me, it's for you as well. So we need you to come halfway to achieve that goal, right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And like kind of the alternative, like what's been harder than expected despite all the effort you put into it?
Yeah. There's always these I guess clients that don't really understand even if we explain it. So they have their own certain, what do you call it? Like a strong mindset of their own thinking. Sometimes it's cultural, sometimes it's family, sometimes it's religious. So it's hard to get around that sometimes when they have a strong feeling of what they believe in. And I mean, we respect that. We do whatever we can to kind of explain, but there's always a point where like, okay, we've done all the explaining that we can. It seems like you understand what we're trying to say, but you just choose to not do not like choose to not believe it, or like choose to decide what you're deciding. which we always respect what they, decide at the end. Eventually it is their eyes, their vision, their life. So that's how we kind of like say it. Like we're trying to, improve your life, experience the quality of it by seeing the best that you can. These are the options, and you let us know, if you want to go through with it. And sometimes it's also like a financial issue. We do provide like these different financial plans. And also, through the charity, hopefully we can help them in a way as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you want to give them all the options. And like you said, ultimately it's their decision. You can kind of guide them, but you can't make them make that decision to move forward, right? Unfortunately. Yeah.
Right.
And if like you've solved all these bottlenecks, what would success look like in the next 6 to 12 months, looking at your business and your charity?
6 to 12 months is pretty close. I would say like at least have like more schools involved, more teachers involved, more daycares just to kind of like spread the awareness and like education part. Like at least they can spread the word of, just spread the knowledge of myopia. Because a lot of people do not know what myopia is. They don't know what myopia, they don't know is nearsightedness. They don't know nearsightedness is the eyeball being too long. They don't know glasses cannot prevent it from getting worse. So there's a lot of things that people don't know because they never really needed to care about it. So it's like, I mean, I love the saying like, you don't know what you don't know. So there's one more thing. Like there's a big example of that. Like kids sometimes don't know they're seeing blurry. So if they
Interesting.
don't
Don't even
know,
know that. Yeah.
they don't complain. If they don't complain, the parents don't know. So it's the whole cycle. And then a lot of times I have a lot of patients where they're like college students or whatever. They found out they couldn't see as well. They found out they were seeing blurry because they were borrowing someone else's glasses for fun. And I said, oh, this is
Interesting. Yeah.
so much better. And
Yeah,
it's
like
like,
how, yeah, that's kind of interesting too, what you said about kids. Like, how do you know a kid, obviously you have the eye exam and everything to test them, like if things
yeah,
are blurry,
yeah,
but like if they don't know what blurry is, like how do you explain that to like a 5-year-old, I guess, I'm kind of
exactly.
curious your perspective. So,
So that's why I always tell the parents just bring them in for exam. We have like a quick checkup to see if they're seeing figures, or if they're like following objects with their
yeah,
eyes, tracking if they're tracking, they're seeing. So like if they know their ABCs, they can read the ABCs. So if they can, then it's probably definitely something with
yeah,
the issue.
yeah, sounds like a lot of context questions for that age group you're asking them, like when they're in class or something.
Yeah, so if they can't see well, they can't learn well. And then a lot of like people who are like misdiagnosed with ADHD, it is not because they can't concentrate, it's because they can't see.
Yeah, yeah, there's like a whole other thing around that as well.
Right, right.
That's a good call as well with ADHD, is like there's just so many stigmas around that, and like what does that mean? And this is just like another thing to be aware of, is maybe they're acting out because they can't see properly and they don't know how to vocalize that, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you for having you on the show. I really appreciate it. It was a great discussion. Where can people connect with you to learn more?
I would say the easiest way is Instagram. My Instagram is Dr. Dr. David Tai. Me or the practice clinic is Vision Light NY. So welcome to DMS with any information or any questions. Always happy to help.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your time today, Dr. Ty. It was a great discussion.
Thank you for having me.